Defying Pope Leo XIV, traditionalists go ahead with bishop consecrations in Switzerland. Add AP News as your preferred source to see more of our stories on Google. Add AP News on Google. Add AP News as your preferred source to see more of our stories on Google. Share Econe, Switzerland AP. A group of traditionalist Catholics directly defied Pope Leo XIV on Wednesday by consecrating 4 bishops without his consent, dismissing the resulting excommunications and break with the Holy See by saying it was necessary to defend the Catholic faith. The Society of St. Pius X, which opposes modernizing reforms in the Catholic Church, went ahead with the 5-hour ceremony at its seminary in Econe, Switzerland, despite a last-ditch appeal by Leo to call it off. The American Pope warned in a letter Tuesday that consecrating bishops without his approval amounted to a sin of extreme gravity that will actually harm their faithful. The consecrations amounted to a crisis for Leo, who has prioritized church unity and healing tensions with traditionalists that worsened during the Pope Francis pontificate. The SSBX, as the society is known, is a threat to the Holy See because it represents a parallel, ultra-Catholic faith. It now has 6 bishops, 751 priests, 264 seminarians training in 5 seminaries, 145 religious brothers, 88 oblates, and 250 religious sisters representing 50 nationalities, according to SSBX statistics. Bells tolled through the misty alpine mountain valley as hundreds of priests walked 2 by 2 to the altar under a tent to start a service, and then again at the end. An estimated 16,500 faithful who prefer the traditional Latin Mass over modern liturgies attended, sitting in a field through a downpour alongside their children, who were too numerous for organizers to count. The Mass, rich in velvet and gold-trimmed vestments, chanting and incense, was live-streamed on the Society's YouTube channel with simultaneous explanations in several languages. The highly organized religious extravaganza underscored the Society's international reach, despite its schismatic outsider status, and appealed to conservative, traditionalist Catholics wary of the modern, secular world. Read more at the start of the Mass. A priest read aloud a statement justifying the consecrations as a necessary sacred duty and dismissing the resulting penalties. We consider every punishment and censure brought to bear against this step will have no validity, he said. In the consecration rite, Bishop Alfonso de Galarreta, who himself was excommunicated after being consecrated without papal consent in 1988, placed his hands on the head of each of the 4 new bishops. The ritual confers the Holy Spirit from one bishop to another and recalls Christ's gesture to his apostles. After they received their mitre hats, gloves, and pastoral staffs, the 4 made a procession through the crowd, blessing the faithful as bishops. According to church law, consecrating a bishop without a papal mandate incurs the harshest penalty in the Catholic Church, automatic excommunication for the 4 new bishops and the bishop administering the rite. It also amounts to a schismatic act and intentional rupture of church unity. The Society was founded in opposition to Vatican II. French Archbishop Marcel Lefebvre founded the SSBX in opposition to the modernizing reforms of the Second Vatican Council. Among other things, the 1960s meetings, known as Vatican II, revolutionized the Church's relations with other Christians, Jews, and people of other faiths, and allowed Mass to be celebrated in the vernacular rather than Latin. In 1988, Lefebvre consecrated 4 bishops without papal consent. The Vatican promptly excommunicated Lefebvre and the 4 bishops and declared the consecrations a schismatic act. Pope Benedict XVI in 2009 lifted the excommunications, but the SSBX today has no legal standing in the Church. The SSBX has accused the Church of being rife with heresies and errors, and that only it is upholding the true faith of Christ. It has justified the consecrations, citing a state of necessity to minister to its faithful. It identified the new bishops as Pascal Schreiber of Switzerland, Michael Goldade of the United States, Mitchell Poinsonet de Civry of France, and Mark Hanapier, also of France. The Rev. David Pagliarani, the SSBX superior, said in his homily that the consecrations were necessary for the salvation of souls, but he also insisted they served Leo and the Church. "We are accused of not respecting the Pope," he said. But it is precisely because we love the Pope as the vicar of Christ, as the head of the Church, that we don't want to see the Pope humiliated any more on the side of false shepherds representing false religions. Catholic faithful don't incur penalties for attending SSBX services, but they also can attend Latin masses celebrated by priests in communion with the Vatican. The Vatican didn't immediately comment on the consecrations, and it wasn't clear how or if it would declare the excommunications or any other penalties. The SSBX acknowledged in a statement late Wednesday that the consecrations did not have papal approval. The ritual had a joyous air, and yet everything about Wednesday's ceremony had the air of a joyous celebration. The SSBX website has had a countdown clock running for days ahead of the consecration. Participants received a baseball cap with the Econe 2026 seal on it. And in perhaps the most obvious sign of a celebration, registered participants could buy a souvenir set of wine to commemorate the historic event for 75 Swiss francs $92.50. The Cuvée des Sacres gift box featured Pinot Noir, Syrah, Petit Arvine, and Fendant, each bottle with a label depicting a bishop's mitre, his ring, a cross or crozier's staff. The field, located under giant power lines, was awash in smiling nuns, priests posing for photos, youths handing out bottled water, black-clad security guards with earpieces, and orange-vested volunteers who occasionally cut short journalists' interviews with the faithful. During the downpour, priests administered communion under yellow and white umbrellas, the colors of the Holy See. Arlena Anglao, a 71-year-old travel agent from the Philippines, said she wanted to be on hand for the historic event and didn't care about the prospect of excommunications of the bishops. She said the Vatican had lost credibility. "I don't think it's going to scare any of us. I'm not scared," she said. "I feel like I'm on a safer road to heaven." Medical researcher Wolfram Linzanzo, 42, a native of Gabon who lives in France, said he wanted to rediscover tradition through the society, noting its presence in the African country. "The Holy Father doesn't really agree with it, but I will pray to the good Lord that the authorities in Rome can one day accept coming back to the Church's traditions," he said before the Mass. Eduardo Limon of Ciudad Juarez, Mexico, lamented that Leo had asked the SSBX to halt the consecrations at the last minute. He prayed that God illuminate him so he sees that the fraternity is an institution that has defended the faith. He said, "I'm both sad and content at the same time," he added. Sad, because again Rome closes itself in accepting that the tradition is the only hope for faith, and happy because the Father Superior Paguayarani has said courageously we are going to go ahead with the consecrations. But many Catholics not in Econe, including conservative and traditional ones, oppose the consecrations as an act of severe disobedience that hurts the Church. "You can't serve tradition while disobeying the Church and her authority," said the Rev. Robert Garl, an ethics expert at the Catholic University of America. Winfield contributed from Rome. Associated Press religion coverage receives support through the AP's collaboration with The Conversation US, with funding from Lilly Endowment, Inc. The AP is solely responsible for this content.